So you love solo TTRPGs, but you've got an itch to run an entire party without completely losing your mind. Well, let's talk about that. Hi, hello, I'm Turk, and welcome back to the Grouch Couch. Around here, we do all different kinds of TTRPG things, but today I'm breaking down how to simplify playing a whole party of characters just by yourself. And we're going to be flipping through the Mythic Magazine Volume 54, because they have loads of really good ideas in there. But I know that you probably didn't read it, so I'm here to read it for you. And of course, if you want to pick up Mythic Magazine Volume 54, you could use our drive-through-RPG link down in the description to pick it up for yourself, and you could help support the show while doing so. And here at the top, I want to say, if you find this video helpful or entertaining in any way, please do leave a like on this here video and subscribe for more solo TTRPG things that we do right here on the channel. I've got loads of other videos talking about things and tips and all their kinds of stuff for solo TTRPGs. Check them out. Let's get down to brass tacks here. Let's talk a little bit about being a one-person adventuring party without going full-on spreadsheet goblin. So playing solo is pretty great until you try to juggle 5 full characters in whatever system that you're playing. It kind of turns into accountants and actuaries, right? So what are the main issues here? I feel like we should cover those first. I mean, first off, you're going to have way too many characters to create. And when you're creating all these different characters, you're probably sitting there thinking to yourself, well, how is the aspect of the party going to work? You know, I've got a ranger, I've got a mage, I need to make sure I cover all of my bases, you know, and make sure that everything's working good and every character's just different enough, but it's just you making the character. So odds are they probably are going to be pretty similar because they're coming from one mind, right? But also, when you're making the character, you're going to realize that you're going to have so much to track, my friend. HP, spells, gear, mental breakdowns. I mean, you kind of name it, right? And your attention span amongst all of these parties of characters, especially if you go with 5 characters, it's going to be split like a bad D&D movie adaptation, if you know what I'm talking about. You want to role play, but you're constantly hopping brains between 5 different backstories, and it kind of becomes a little bit overwhelming. So, like it says here in the book, you got too much to create, too much to keep track of, and your focus is going to be completely fractured, right? So what are some options? How are we going to solve this issue of making all these different characters and running a party? Because, I mean, it's such a cool idea to be able to run a full party of characters by yourself. Honestly, it's super cool. So what are some options here? One of the options Mythic Magazine gives us, one of the options is to play a collective instead of thinking about playing a group or a single set of 5 characters, like 5 PCs. We're talking about playing a collective PC, right? A party that acts like one single character. You know, I'm thinking like Power Rangers or Voltron, like professional D&D con artists who all just happen to share one single stat block, like Ocean's 11 or something, right? We're still going to get multiple personalities and flavors, right? But mechanically, we're only going to be tracking one single character sheet. The whole party is going to share its health, it's going to share its gear, and it's going to share its abilities, all right? You name it. You know, then you kind of flavor individual moments with unique quirks. Maybe the mage's got sticky fingers. Maybe the cleric's afraid of bees. It adds flair without too much bookkeeping, right? That's one of the options that this book gives us. And if you are interested in making a full-on collective character, it does give us a little bit of options on how to do so, which is kind of helpful. Because I think building a collective group is kind of something hard for me to even wrap my head around. Like, how does that work? One single stat block for an entire party, right? How does that work? I think one of the most important lines from this book here is this Mythic Magazine here is that it says to build this party of one, we need to fiddle with our chosen RPG's character creation rules. We're making a new kind of PC, a multi-character that combines aspects of other characters. How smooth this process goes may depend on your chosen RPG works. It may have an open creation system, for instance, with a la carte options and a point-buy method that can be expanded to encompass multiple characters. If a typical character build uses 25 points, then your party of 4 is a single character built around 100 points or thereabouts. So I think the easiest way to do this is you're going to pick where to start, right? Do we want 3 characters? Do we want 4 characters? That's the best way to start. I'm currently thinking about doing a Shadow Dark series where I have 3 characters in the party. And that's kind of what got me interested in this here Mythic Magazine, and I was reading through it because it's kind of helpful to wrap my head around it. Even if you don't go with building a collective, there's some more tips in here that I think might be helpful for you. But for now, after you pick how many characters that you want, for each class or character, you're going to pick just their most defining elements. So if you want to make sure you have a thief in the group, they have good thieving, or an engineer has just good engineer stuff, right? And you're going to mix and match to make a Frankenstein mega PC. And I think it's important to pick their most defining elements in the sense of good things, but also in bad things. So what is a weakness that the party might have? I think that's an important thing to add in there. I don't think they say anything about that in this here magazine, but for me, you're going to want to play on weaknesses as well, because role-playing failures is always the best, especially when it comes to solo TTRPGs. You want to fail forward, always, right? So you're going to pool what makes sense, like hit points. I might still keep hit points separate, but here in the book it says you could pull together hit points, and you can max what doesn't make sense, like attributes with fixed ranges, right? So you're building the highlight reel of your party, right? Not every single little detail do you need to put in there, but you need to think about the important stuff. Like I said, the thief's sneakiness, cool. You want the fighter's sword damage, cool, take it, all right? And don't sweat the rest. Like, you don't need to know what the fighter's survival is, right? Because we probably have a character who's going to be doing all the survival checks for us. The book also goes into more detail to say that if you are using a point buy system, you should multiply all the points together by 0.75. So if it's 100 points per character and you're building a party of 4, then you're going to take 300 points just to build your mega PC, for example. So 2/3, 3/4, math. Right, so even in here it says, take notes, it's going to get messy. If you're constructing a party character for an RPG that uses classes, you're going to pick and choose elements from each class. This will create a character that's a patchwork of numerous classes with the best elements of each. This may start simply enough as you choose the first class and select the portions of it that you like, write down those elements, then move on to the next class, choose more elements, and so on. I think for me, whenever I do something like this, I'm still going to probably create all the sheets separate, but I'm just going to focus in on each thing, the important parts of it. I'm not going to get too bogged down by the exact stats of every single little character, just the important ones and the weakest ones, and those are kind of what I'm going to move forward with. I'm not sure. Hey, if my Shadow Dark series has been released here on the channel, maybe check it out to see how I did a full group playthrough of a solo TTRPG. And I think Shadow Dark's a really good one to do too, because it's OSR, it's kind of a little bit more simplified, stuff like that. But hey, if we're doing modern fancy time stuff, that's what we're here for. That's what we're talking about. So let's continue. So cobbling together a composite character made of the 6 best elements of a desperate classes. I can't talk today. Will make a formidable character sheet. However, that one group character is probably still weaker than all the PCs had they been constructed separately, which I think is important to remember. There's going to be weaknesses here, right? Before we get into role-playing a whole group, which I think is very important, especially if you're like me, I love to role-play a lot, even when I'm doing solo stuff. Yeah, I just do. It's wonderful. We also need to talk about equipment. So in here it says equipment is handled based on the type of equipment it is, general, critical, or special. General equipment is the kind of stuff any character or party would have: horses for travel, tents for camping, ropes, lanterns, some money, etc. You can enumerate it if you want, or abstract it, right? So just kind of imagine, even in Ironsworn Starforged, it says, just imagine that everyone has what they're basically going to need. They even have a equipment stat that you could use, and you can just roll on that equipment stat versus a DC just to see if your party has that general thing. And over time, your equipment stat goes down and up depending if you shop or if you use things, and I think that's just a fun idea to have as a group collective, an equipment stat, which it doesn't say in here, but it's kind of something that I'm going to steal from Ironsworn Starforged moving forward. It's just a wonderful thing. I think Ironsworn in general has it, which, by the way, shout out to Ironsworn. It's free. It's wonderful. So now we need to talk about role-playing the collective, right? And they do have some tips in here on how to role-play a collective. Mechanically, it's one PC, right? But narratively, it's still your party. So when someone does something, you're going to have to pick who does that thing and then role-play them doing that thing. So if David, the thief, decides that he's going to steal some stuff and he fails, you need to role-play as David doing the thing, right? Especially when we're talking about doing their specific stats that we picked earlier, the important ones. The thief is going to be doing the thieving, etc. That's what you're going to do. So also, when someone gets hurt, it's kind of the same deal, right? You're going to have to pick who's getting hurt. Who would have been in that position to get hurt in the first place? It's about your imagination. I would also suggest, when it comes to getting hurt, if you have 4 people in the party, number each one of them, and you can roll a d4 each time someone's about to get hurt. And there you go. You've got a roll chart for your party for damage. Wonderful stuff. So it's all about vibe here. You can still have Serana, the bodyguard, tank the hit if it makes sense to you, or Nathan, the engineer, could defuse the bomb, even though they're all still technically one stat block, right? The trick is abstract. What you need, narrate what you want, move the story forward. It's important to not get bogged down, especially in solo TTRPGs here. If it takes more than 20 seconds, there's a 20-second rule in a book I read recently. If it takes more than 20 seconds to figure out, roll it again or pick and move on. It's 20-second rule is always important. So it also says here that something that comes up recurrently in this approach is the question of when to think of the party character as a single entity and when to think of the individuals in the party. Almost always, mechanical game rules apply to the collective character. You don't even have character sheets for these individuals in this scenario, right? So in effect, mechanically speaking, they don't exist. There's just one character sheet for the whole party. And narratively, whenever you decide what happens in the adventure, you may refer to the party as a whole in an abstract way or pinpoint an individual member. Basically, kind of what we just talked about a little bit here. But I think also, when we talk about this a little bit, we need to talk about combat. And I think this paragraph here has some important things, so I'm just going to read from that as well. So the party character fights as a single entity, right? It's still hard to wrap my head around, but although you could interpret the narration to indicate individual members of the party, for instance, if our band of fantasy heroes runs up against a group of 3 bandits, it's our one party PC against 3 NPCs. The party PC rolls for initiative just like any single PC would. Does a certain number of attacks per round, does a certain amount of damage, takes damage, has armor, etc. All of the particulars for the group PC are figured out during character creation when we chose the 6 elements from each individual character to incorporate into a combo character. This includes elements such as damage, number of attacks, armor, equipment, resistances, etc. Keep in mind that we will have to use interpretation when narrating our party PC in action. And in this book, it does say to pick 6 things from the whole party to include on one character sheet. So like the strength from the fighter, the dexterity from the thief, the AC from the paladin, etc. So we know who's tanking the hits, who's doing the dex moves, who's doing the strength-based moves. We've taken 6 things from each one, and we're just averaging out everything else. Or we're taking the lesser values of everything else as an average because we want to be able to fail forward even in our stories as a group party, right? So we might still take the stealth from the paladin because their stealth is bad, and as a group we're not good at stealthing. That kind of makes sense. Number of attacks here, the same logic applies to the number of attacks per round your party PC receives. Number of attacks is also a PC element, so it would have to be selected as a character creation element to count. This would probably make the most sense as the pooled element, but you would have to spend the elements to take full advantage of it. For instance, maybe individually, the barbarian and warrior each have 2 attacks per round, while the wizard and rogue have 1. You could spend 4 element choices to include each of them in your pooled party total for 6 attacks per round to your PC, or maybe you want to spend some of those elements on something else. So you focus on the 2 best fighters, the barbarian and warrior, then you would only spend the other 2 elements and get 4 attacks per round. There's a lot of ways to juggle this, and I think the 6 element rule that I should have mentioned earlier is kind of a fun way to do this. It says here, the death is an opportunity for change. I think so. Get them the heck out of here. We don't want them anymore. So that's fun. I think it's still smart to create all of the character sheets and have them to the side and then create a main PC character sheet that you're going to use all the time. So if you ever need a reference back to those, you know where those elements came from. You've got them on the side. Especially if a character dies, you know to remove those specific elements from the main character sheet. That's kind of an important thing. And you could also use the same thing when it comes to advancement. You could advance each one and then update those on the main character sheet. It's kind of a fun way to do that. And I think advancement is something we should touch on a little bit more. I think that you should level up like normal, right? You should pick the class that you're following for each character sheet, use its track, get the boost to your existing stuff, and you could pick 1 new ability per class in the group. I think makes sense. You could also add new members later, like you can just tack on 6 new elements and rebalance a bit. And magic items, use them if they make sense, right? If your warrior can swing the +2 sword, then the party can too, right? The party character sheet. Mythic Magazine 54 has a lot of really fun stuff in it for playing a party collective as a group. I think it's a really super fun idea. I don't know if it's something that I'm going to use on my upcoming solo series, but what do you guys think, playing a party collective there? It's kind of an interesting idea. Leave it down in the comments below. How do you play a group as a solo player? I'm honestly curious to hear about it because I'm going to be doing it moving forward, and I would love some fun advice, and I'm sure the rest of the community would too. But I do think that playing solo as a party doesn't have to be overwhelming, right? You could build this collective and keep it abstract and just focus on the narrative story if that's what you're going for, less mechanics. You still get the fun of different characters without needing a whole second monitor and 5 spreadsheets just to keep a list of their gear, unless you're into that kind of thing, I guess. So my friends, that's all I have for you today. Mythic Magazine 54. Each month I'm covering Mythic Magazine, right, as they come out, and as I can get my hands on them. Speaking of that, do use DriveThruRPG. Our link down in the description helps support the show. It does. It helps me be able to get more things to cover and stuff like that. If you want to pick up anything on DriveThruRPG for yourself. My friends, I have been Turk. Take a seat on the couch and roll initiative, at least for a little while. Roll on that, weirdos. See you next time.